Hello, welcome. We're so happy you're joining us. My name is Andrea Gonzalez with Trellis Strategies. So, this is the second episode in our fifth Trellis Strategies 360 discussion series. We're grateful to have the expertise and wisdom of our panelists today. And in this series, we're discussing innovative leadership for the modern learner. We're doing this by having one-on-one conversations with presidents and chancellors of post-secondary institutions. Our discussion will be led today by our President and CEO, Dr. Debra Chromy. And participant videos are off, but we encourage you to share questions or comments in the chat or Q&A, and we will respond to those at the end of the discussion. All right, Debra, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you for all the work that you do behind the scenes to make the Trellis 360 discussion series such a huge success. This particular series that we're in right now is building off of the work that Trellis Strategies has been doing, really focusing on speaking with innovative higher education leaders who are reimagining their institutions for the modern learner. So I am so incredibly excited to have Dr. Vela with us today. Robert, he asked me to call him Robert, so I'm making a transition right there. And I want to give you, since we have people from all over the country, here in Texas, Robert is incredibly well known. So, but we have people from all over the country. So I'm going to give you a little background, a little context. Robert began serving as the 22nd president of Texas A&M University-Kingsville in June of 2022. His career has been dedicated to promoting access and opportunity to higher education across the state of Texas. He has been a great partner with Trellis. He participated in Project Success, which unfortunately ended this year, but for a number of years. His campus also participates in our Student Financial Wellness Survey, which I know many of you are aware of. And I believe, Robert, you and your team use that data to really help inform mitigation strategies.
Yes, we do. Yep.
And then most recently this fall, Robert participated on our president's panel at our Modern Learner Summit, which was an incredible event. We're hoping to do that again soon. But let me tell you a little bit about Robert's leadership at Texas A&M University-Kingsville. During his tenure, he has experienced enrollment growth, increased research initiatives, and has launched workforce development programming. Can't wait to get in and talk more about that. Additionally, Robert has propelled the university to become the first four-year university in the nation to adopt the Franklin Covey 4 Disciplines of Execution Framework, which focuses on performance, excellence, and continuous improvement. We want to hear more about that too. In 2024, Texas A&M University-Kingsville became the first university in the country to join the Caring Campus Initiative through the Institute for Evidence-Based Change, which promotes a series of behaviors proven to enhance student success, sounds like it's obviously working. Want to hear more about that. I also want to take a moment for those of you who have not been following the news here in Texas. A big congratulations to Robert and his team. Texas A&M University-Kingsville received a landmark gift of $38 million, the single largest gift in the school's history, from Mackenzie Scott. I look forward to hearing, Robert, how this gift will further the incredible work you are doing. It allows you to explore to expand on what you've been doing, but also explore transformational opportunities for the institution and the students you serve in South Texas. So enough about that. So that gives background to everybody. And you're no stranger to Texas. You were also at San Antonio College. Also, if I'm remembering correctly, you got a grant from Mackenzie Scott when you were there as well, right?
It was the timing was so perfect, right? We received the premier award for the best community college in the country, and then was gifted a $15 million gift from Mackenzie Scott. So it was the Aspen Prize, $1 million prize, and then a $15 million gift from Mackenzie Scott that came on top of that. So it was pretty special.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're pretty special because wherever you go, as we were talking earlier, it's a nice affirmation of what you're doing is working and being recognized. So it's really exciting. I'm going to provide a little bit of background for the folks on the call around Modern Learner. For those of you who are not familiar with that term. It is something that we have been using here at Trellis Strategies for a couple of years now. We really base our work at Trellis Strategies around helping entities, including colleges and universities, understand and adapt to the modern learner. And I think, Andrea, if you want to throw a link to our 2024 Student Financial Survey wellness results, survey results in the chat, that people can see that. But let me give you a couple of bullet points that really describe who we think about when we're thinking about modern learners. So in our survey across the country, about 2/3 of respondents work for pay while enrolled. Many of these working students work full-time, 43% of them, or hold more than one job, 25% of them. And over a third, 36%, and I want to underscore this, over a third identify primarily as post-secondary education is increasingly, they identify as workers first, who go to school, and students second. So over a third identify as workers first and students second. I think that's really, especially the population in Kingsville, Robert, I think is an apt description, and maybe for all community colleges across the country. And so therefore, affording a post-secondary education is increasingly challenging for learners. Overall, the many demands on students' time can impede their academic progress, especially if they are, so instead of using non-traditional student, because I believe the modern learner is now the traditional student, but it can impede their academic progress, for example, by limiting their ability to attend class consistently. In our 2024 survey results, which I think Andrea just put in the chat, 24% of parents had missed at least one day of class due to lack of childcare. 25% of working students missed at least one day of class due to conflicts with their work schedules, and 15% of all respondents missed class at least sometimes due to lack of transportation. Three big things that we don't normally think about, right, when we think about college students, but for, I think, today's modern learner, these are the norms. This is what they're facing. However, despite all of these challenges, 73% of respondents agree that college is a good investment in their financial future. And 84% of respondents believe a college degree will provide them with a higher quality of life. And so that's something we really need to support. And I know that Robert's doing that in Kingsville. Students attending two-year institutions were especially likely to believe the worth of college, that believed in the worth of college, and were also more likely to say they would recommend their school to prospective students. So with all of that as a background and thinking about the population, that's sort of the framework for the conversation we're going to have with Robert today. And Robert, I think what I just described probably describes a big chunk of your students as well.
No doubt. And I just want to commend Trellis Strategies for changing the narrative, right? I mean, for so many years, we've thought about these students as non-traditional students, right? And we never kind of looked at it from their lens, kind of what they thought about that term, which could have, I think, more of a deficit mindset at times, for these folks that are trying to come in. So the modern learner, I think, changes the narrative, takes a more asset-based mentality about how important they are to our university culture, and I think we're onto something, because you're right, it is shifting, and the priorities are shifting, and the real question is: are universities shifting? Are community college shifting to ensure that we are truly student-centric and student-ready for those challenges? And I think we are, especially those that are members of the Trellis family.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you for your kind words. But I think you're right. It's about being student-centric as opposed to university-centric. But I'm going to start first with a few questions for you around leadership, your leadership philosophy, your vision. As you know, we're in this incredible period of rapid change in the world, and it's impacting post-secondary education. Some people are getting on board with it. Others are slower to change. It seems like you are wrapping your arms around that, and thinking about innovation as being more essential than ever to serve learners, especially these modern learners. So my question to you to start things off is, how do you create this culture within your team? How do you get them to think student-centric and to think differently about how you deliver services, how you deliver the education experience?
Yeah, I'm going to give a big shout out to my mentor, Dr. Bruce Leslie, who is retired in Colorado, but he was a very innovative thinker, very courageous thinker at the Alamo Colleges when he hired me there as president of San Antonio College. But it's imperative that we have courageous conversations about the why, about the mission, and about what we do as educators. I often talk about, if we're in higher ed, we're in essence educators, regardless of what our titles are, right? We are educators. And what I'm looking for, Deborah, is the educator heart. The educator heart in people is a heart that does not quit, right? Whether you're physically there at the institution or you're shopping at HEB, right, and trying to help a student get back into school, that educator heart never quits. So one of the hardest things to take on from a cultural perspective in developing the right team to be successful is, my standard is I want the smartest person, but I want the person with the biggest heart also, right? So I've been criticized at times when people say, "Well, we're going to go for a third time out for this position, and we've had 2 failed searches," and I correct them quickly, and I'm like, "These are not failed searches. These are actually searches that have worked." Well, but we think that your standard's too high. You want the brightest, but you also want the one with the most compassion. I said, they're out there. You've got to double down on the people that are going to drive your mission home in every aspect of your organization. And you can't really just accept an average kind of mentality, right? You've got to shoot for excellence. And I know that's oftentimes in a rural community, it's hard, right? Because it may be a little bit easier in the big metroplexes. But if you're true to your word and you're doing great things, educators with educators' hearts follow those types of missions. So they will come looking for those opportunities. And that's what we're experiencing at A&M Kingsville, I believe, is we have talented leaders that are relentless about our mission and our students. And we're starting to attract even more talent as a result of being affirmed through different venues that, wow, what are they doing in Kingsville? And you know what? I actually want to be a part of that, and I think it gets easier as you begin to really shift some of that culture into a truly asset-based mentality.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It takes some time to form that right team, but when you have it, when you have your dream team, life gets a lot easier, right? You're able to deliver against the mission. Yes, you have challenging conversations, but they're good challenging conversations.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. Meaningful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about what does it mean owning our backyard? I saw that in some descriptions of work that you do. What does that mean to you? And how does that principle influence your leadership approach?
Yeah, this is this is my second presidency, and in both instances, I've taken on institutions that have had very challenging, a very challenging track record over time. And in rural South Texas, it's very easy to just say, well, these are rural students that aren't prepared. They're not really ready for a university setting. Maybe we need to go recruit students in Houston, or we got to go recruit students in Dallas. And my thing is that's okay, but what is the mission of a regional university that's embedded in South Texas, right? And for A&M Kingsville, let me tell you what that means. We were the first university in South Texas that actually believed in South Texas. That's something that you've got to say it often and understand what that means and what's been our role here for the last 100 years and who we've educated over the last 100 years, and really understand that without this university over the last 100 years, there's this large segment of our backyard that would not be educated or they may not be doing well, right? But it's also treating our our communities as an asset-based kind of mentality, right? Because if it's everything about, I get criticized to say, well, do you know the type of students we're getting? Do you know how underprepared they are? And I go right back to, have you visited those high schools that I have visited, or those elementary schools that I have visited in our backyard? And really understand the challenges that those educators are going through with limited resources, with a declining population in their communities, with abandoned building after abandoned building in these rural communities. I said, is that the place you're talking about? Because it's very easy to criticize them or judge those communities. What I'm asking is that you've got to take a mindset that every student in our backyard has a superpower, has a gift. And they do, and they're dreaming of something bigger. They just don't know how to get there. When you take on that mentality and you start seeing students as an asset, as a potential superpower that you're developing, then it's different, right? It's a different mindset when you greet your students at the front door. And it's important to really own that and understand that, because it's easy to say they're not prepared. Well, who is prepared, to come into a university setting, right? Unless you're a first generation college student, and understand how scary that is for the first time, regardless of whether you're stepping foot in a community college, regional university, or a flagship of that state. It's intimidating. It is a foreign country to most students. So understanding that, owning that, having courageous conversations about it without judging and just criticizing. But this is where we are. We have a mission to serve rural South Texas. Let's own our backyard. Let's go out and get every student to come to our university and thrive and prosper. Because at the end of the day, the power of one student gets through the finish line. You change that student, you change the family, you change generations, you change communities. And that's going to take time. I remember Coach Popovich talking about winning championships for the San Antonio Spurs. And he talked about, there is no magic formula. You just need to continue to chip at the stone every single day.
I couldn't agree more. And as a first gen student myself, within one generation, the whole wealth picture changes. Yes. And you're right. It changes the family. It changes the community, especially if people are able to stay in that community. So you actually used one of the phrases I use all the time, which is, if you educate a student, you not only change that student, you change that family, and you change that community. So love it. Yes.
Love it.
So how do you balance the traditional structure of a university with culture change needed to advance the modern learner? So we talked about this modern learner, 9 to 5 doesn't work for them. So how do you sort of prioritize flexibility, affordability, workforce readiness? How do you think about that within the traditional setting?
Yeah, and I think for us as a culture, as a university culture, we need to have these authentic, courageous conversations, right? About, do we want to stay relevant and serve our community and our regional mission? Or are we trying to be something that we'll never be, and we're not, right? And so finding that niche and what it means to us is very important, and being highly relevant. So what does that mean for rural South Texas, right? So if you've worked in an urban setting, you have a lot of partners around. You have a lot of nonprofits. You have a lot of educational institutions that you can partner with. When you're in a rural setting, they're not there. You have to create these pathways yourself as best you can with your local partners. But so for us, it's understanding that making those exceptions to what is the norms of a traditional higher education institution is not compromising the education. It's not compromising the standard, right? Because I was often accused of, well, you just want to water things down. No. Actually, I want the bar to remain very high, because these students, once they graduate, we have an obligation to have integrity in our programs and where they're employed. I'm asking you to understand and have a personal relationship with students to understand where they're coming from. Simply allowing them a little extra time, simply having them make up an assignment is not compromising the education. It's understanding that our students have lives, have responsibilities, but at the end of the day, they have the grit and the wherewithal to be present and having a little basic human compassion for adult students, modern students. You're not compromising anything. You're simply being highly relational and understanding that if we're going to accept our backyard, we're truly going to accept where our students come from and what they're experiencing. So those are meaningful conversations, and then aligning and developing a strategic plan that aligns with those values and those commitments to drive that home. You cannot drive a strategic plan forward without having a culture that's ready to understand what the mission is. When I got here, we didn't understand our North Star. We had pockets of excellence, but they were all moving in different directions. What is our North Star? And what's the framework to ensure that we never lose sight of that North Star? And that North Star represents student success, graduation, completion, getting a job that you can be proud of, and providing for your family and elevating your family and generations. That is our North Star. We do some great things around research. We do great things, but at the end of the day, the mission of a regional university in South Texas is to lift our communities up so they can land great jobs that aren't jobs. Really, it's a way of life for a lot of these students.
Right. So that's how you make all your decisions, is really focused on, does this help us achieve that North Star?
Yes.
Yeah. No,
yes.
That's incredible. And I do know that you need community partnerships to make this work. And so can you talk a little bit about those community partnerships with any organizations to offer student supports, whether it's mental health, addressing food insecurity, housing insecurity, financial literacy? Does that happen on campus? Do you do that with partners in the community? How does that all work?
In a very traditional way, we should offer those services, right? But as you know, with lean budgets and these kinds of things, we had to think outside the box. So, I mean, when you talk about mental health and health in general, we have a partner with Community Action Corporation of South Texas. They've been delivering quality health care to various rural counties for years and doing it very, very well. They're our partner when it comes to mental health. We still have traditional mental health counselors, but we can't do it alone, right? We got some telehealth medicine and mental health in partnership with them. They run our health clinic so that every kid has a place to go. Every adult has a place to go if they're sick. We partner with our Coastal Bend Food Bank to be sure that our food pantry is always stocked and has plenty of great food and opportunities. So these partnerships are key, because we just healthcare in general. We cannot have. It's very difficult to recruit a medical doctor to oversee our health clinic. Even if we did, we couldn't probably afford them a long term. So these partnerships are key to leverage our mission. We can't do it all, and especially with some of these complex kind of services. So for us, it's not just selecting a partner to deliver a service. Does the partner align with our mission and values? And if they do, then it's a natural fit. It's just part of what we do as a mission. It's not a service that we're somehow obtaining, right? These are true partnerships, and these partners, we are very picky to ensure that they're aligned with what we're trying to do in our community. So they have a track record of success. They have a track record of being here when times are tough. And that's what we need. That's the type of partner we need moving forward.
Yeah, that real integration, so that, makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
One of the things that's happening here in the state of Texas is that companies are moving here like crazy, and they're looking for a skilled workforce. And if they don't have the skilled workforce, they're importing talent from out of state. And we don't want that to happen, right? We want it to be our people getting skilled up, et cetera. So can you talk a little bit about the Skilled Trades Academy, which was a really bold move toward short-term credentials and stackable pathways? And how do you see those programs redefining what college means, especially for these modern learners?
Great question. We're doubling down, actually, Deborah, on that. With this Mackenzie Scott gift, we are going to outfit a workforce innovation campus, and it will be filled with these types of short-term credentials, marketable industry credentials that we're going to ensure that every program we bring will be 100% degree applicable to our baccalaureate degrees. See, that's the gap. And I'm not criticizing anything other than oftentimes these credentials are earned and they're brought to a university, right? And they want to continue to secure an engineering degree or maybe an industrial technology degree. And they, in essence, at times have to start all over, right? So we're going to make sure that every one of those credentials are aligned to very specific degrees that are industry kind of hotbeds for us in our community. The big focus for us was Oxy coming and is going to set up a potentially the world's largest direct air capture plant right here in our backyard. The King Ranch has put up 100,000 acres to ensure that this happens, and they're going to need 3,500 employees. Now, obviously, there's a lot of runway there, but what are we going to do to ensure that those students are being recruited here so they can stay and work here and continue their education here? Because you're absolutely right. What they're saying is, if we hire someone from, let's say, Louisiana to come as a process technology type person, and we train them, they come here, they're going to leave back to Louisiana for $1 more an hour because they want to get back home. So again, their value system is aligned with our value system. We want to educate our students to keep the talent here so they can continue to have a contribution to help these communities thrive, right? Especially these rural communities. So those values align for us, because if they simply want to recruit our students, to train them, to get them to leave to Michigan, that's not really aligned with us, right?
Right.
Even there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's not what our students want. They want to stay here. So those value systems with these companies that are moving in are aligned, and we need to do a better job so that they're not having to go look elsewhere or bring in. I mean, realistically, they're going to have to bring in some talent, no doubt. But while we catch up and make sure that we prepare those next engineers, those next project managers, those next CEOs in our backyard, it's going to be a partnership to achieve those goals. So we're going to double down on workforce. We're actually going to create not a center, this is a full-blown campus that's going to be dedicated to ensuring these workforce programs are elevated in the eyes of our community, that you don't, so a javelina is no longer just a 4-year degree. We just graduated our first electrical level 1 completers about a week ago, and it was a packed house of families and students and modern learners, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I said, each of you've got to understand, are all javelinas. That's our mascot, right? And you heard the gasp from the communities saying, what? My son or my daughter or my dad is a javelina? Yes, y'all are officially now javelinas. You're part of the javelina family. And it was pretty special, Deborah, to own our backyard. They want to be a part of this university. They graduated from a very rigorous electrical level 1 program that's nationally certified. And they are now javelinas. They're part of the family. And they have a pathway now all the way through a baccalaureate degree here at our university.
That's incredible. I have so many questions I want to ask you about this. So, you mentioned, a dad, a child, whatever. Are you focusing at all on those that maybe started a program of higher ed and for whatever reason, life got in the way, it wasn't a good fit, they stopped out? to think about them for the Skilled Trades Academy to get them re-enrolled? And if so, how are you outreaching to the community to make sure they're aware of this opportunity and the fact that there's a job like really waiting at the end of this?
No doubt. So that's exactly what we're doing through, obviously, all of my colleagues probably have some type of promise program, right? We have a Javelina promise program that is not just for incoming freshmen. That includes transfers. That includes students that may have stopped out. But we went a step further, and we actually had some donors come through to say, we want to start a Javelina Relight program. At some point, these students had a very bright light in their hearts to do something special, and they had to stop out, right? So the relight is to relight that spark, that fire in their belly, to get them back engaged through either our workforce programs or maybe they need a semester or two to finish their baccalaureate degrees. Whatever that is that we're going after those students to ensure that they get what they need. And I'm telling you, it is some of the most emotional kind of graduations and ceremonies that we have, because these folks had already written that off and basically said, this is what will be moving forward. But bigger than that, they're coming now with their children. Their children are watching their dad, their mom graduate in tears of joy. For a kid that's, 10 years old, 8 years old, to see those tears of joy coming from their parents, that is something that doesn't leave them. Mm-hmm. That is somehow in them now. They are now hardwired to understand and know the value of a degree like this, right? So those parents, those graduates are our biggest spokespeople. And oftentimes they may not even say a word, but just those tears of joy are enough to send those shockwaves through a community to say, wow, that is special, Yeah. And this university is here for everybody. It's not just for a certain type of student that is no longer relevant to the reality of who we serve especially in rural South Texas.
Yeah. No, this sort of leading by example, if you will, by seeing, just regular people in the community advancing and changing their lives by, putting in that effort and working collaboratively with the folks at the university. Incredible.
Yes.
And speaking about collaboration and about companies coming in or companies that are there now, can you talk a little bit about conversations you've had with company leaders around what skill sets they're looking for? I mean, obviously, when you developed the academy, you had to look and see, but making sure that anybody who's completing, whether it's a credential or a degree, has what the employers are looking for. And can you talk a little bit about, in addition to that, changes you might make from a programmatic perspective to your curricula and making sure that they're, to your North Star comment, that they're not just persisting, graduating, but they're actually getting into a job that becomes a way of life?
No, that's a great question. I'm going to give you a perfect example of that. Is you've got to be at the table, right? You've got to understand kind of where Texas is going, right? Also, where the country's going. Obviously, there are rural parts of Texas that are not connected. Mm-hmm. They don't have the fiber. They don't have the connections that a lot of us have to be able to access the internet or access an online class and things like that. So broadband is an issue, right? And so the state comptroller puts out these major grants that we went after. We are now creating a broadband technician certification for the entire state of Texas that will lead to an electrical engineering or an industrial technology degree right here in Kingsville, Texas. And this was a very specific need for telephone companies and things that were saying like, okay, have y'all been to rural South Texas? Have you been to rural East Texas, or where these folks don't have connections? They're having to rely on substandard connections that they can't rely on, and then you wonder why they can't log into an online class or whatever. I mean, so these are things that are aligned with where Texas is going, And how are you leveraging that to really fulfill the mission that you have for your backyard, right? And get them to ensure. So we landed a $5 million grant from the state comptroller's office.
Nice.
We're the only university, by the way, to get that grant to develop the curriculum to develop broadband technicians for the entire state of Texas. And what a blessing it is for our students in our backyard to say, you mean it started right here in Kingsville? Yeah, this is where it started. And by the way, you told me early on you want to be an engineer. That program is now 100% degree applicable to an engineering degree. How about that, right? So they're excited. You see that, you see hope in their eyes. You see like, this is possible. You see that light, that those wishes, those dreams come true when they were dreaming, when they were kids, of something bigger than themselves. It's pretty special. I mean, and only an educator with an educator heart can see and appreciate how special that is, right? Because it's not always about money. It's not always about the shiny objects. As an educator, you look for those opportunities that elevate a person, but elevate communities, and you start seeing the infusion, the alignment of your efforts. Every effort that you have with the county judge or with the mayor, it's intentional to drive this home, and I think it's even more so in rural parts of the country where you have to be very creative and innovative to leverage everything you can, because you don't always have a lot of resources. And if you're the regional university in a rural setting, I'm going to try to knock as hard as I can. You're the answer. They're looking for you as that higher ed institution to figure out those very difficult community problems. And we got to own that, and we've got to, and we accept it with a point of pride that we're going to help our community. You've got to have that all-in mentality for your community.
Yeah, and research I looked at a number of years ago, it's also making sure that that educational opportunity and the job opportunity is in, as you call it, your backyard, because families don't want their kids to go far. They want them, and the kids want to stay, I should say kids, the students, the modern learner, like they want to stay in their communities, right?
So Debra, this is another proof point that I haven't mentioned, but so Bill Gates came down to Kingsville, Texas, and they had the higher ups of Oxy. We had all the dignitaries, and I sat and we all talked with Bill Gates because they were looking to see if he was willing to fund some of this direct air capture kind of proposals. And I remember after our talk with Bill Gates, the head of U.S. operations from Oxy, this is a big company, worldwide, came to see me afterwards. He goes, "I need to talk to you." And I said, I'd love to. I know who you are. And he said, "Robert, I'm from Edna, Texas."
Oh, wow.
Rural Edna, Texas.
Wow.
I am the head of U.S. operations. I did not want to leave Edna. I loved my community. I loved my city. I had to leave. So what you said resonated with me, because how many kids having to make students having to make a sacrifice when they really don't want to leave? They want to prosper and thrive and give back to their communities, right? But they're forced to, because maybe they're pursuing a very advanced degree like engineering or a healthcare industry. So why not create those opportunities for those students that don't want to leave can still thrive and prosper here? Those that will leave. It's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the majority of us, don't want to leave if they don't have to leave. So why not create those opportunities? So it resonated even with a person with that level of position in a very prominent oil company, gas company, and now direct air capture. That's pretty special. I said, well, I need you to say that 100 times when you're here in Kingsville, because that's what we've been saying all along. But they need to hear it from you. And by the way, they don't think you're from Edna, Texas, right?
Right.
They think you're from some other, I don't know.
Urban,
wealthy background.
Yeah.
No. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was that strong ag program at Edna that produced an amazing leader for Oxy.
Yeah, which is incredible, and that's a great proof point. I love that. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about innovations in digital learning or hybrid models. Can you talk about those that you're exploring to meet the needs of students who cannot commit to a traditional on-campus experience? You mentioned that you're a regional university, and transportation is one of the issues. Can you talk about opportunities for people to still pursue a degree without having to travel maybe 60 or more miles to get to their regional university?
No, obviously it's a challenge, especially for rural regional universities. But every degree offering that's on the table for consideration has to have some type of online hybrid component moving forward, right? So as we're moving some of the more traditional programs to a hybrid approach, or maybe even shortening the part of term,
Yeah,
so we can get students through faster. All those things that are coming that are very oftentimes difficult for universities to kind of transform into. Those are the courageous conversations we're having. And we need to talk about, well, then show me how this somehow compromises the curriculum or the expectations we have, right? And can we learn from those institutions that are doing it well, that are fully accredited, that are being acknowledged, worldwide? I think of ASU, Arizona State University, and what they're doing, right? We've got to be able to have those conversations. There are certain programs, like we just brought in a new construction management program, fully online, Deborah. You think construction management, how is that possible? It's coming right out of engineering. Well, we're using technology. We're using, these things that are available through us through some of the complex problem-solving techniques they're using in engineering, and they're available to us online. They're available to us through sometimes virtual learning or these kinds of things. That's how we do it. And by the way, it doesn't compromise the accreditation, doesn't compromise the license, because there are institutions that are doing it well. So why not in rural South Texas, right? Why wouldn't we? That's a misstep for us, because a lot of these students that are going to engage in these degrees are already in the field. They're not going to be able to come to a traditional 8-to-2 schedule. I mean, that's just not possible for our learners, right? So
no, not at all. And I visited a college, a community college, who was using the virtual reality, and I got to tell you, if you're not a book learner, that is a cool way to learn. Yes, you still have to read books, but what a cool way to learn. Like, I think that's going to engage, I think about, sorry, I'm way off script now, Robert, but
no.
I think about the young men in this country and how there's been a decrease in young men going to college. And I think if we were able to promote, I think you might see this type of approach to learning. You might see a number of folks looking at these types of opportunities.
That's exactly right. So we've partnered with Workforce Solutions, the big workforce arm in the Coastal Bend area, and they get a lot of money through the state and through the feds. And that's exactly what they do, is developing the virtual curriculum that we have been missing out. We have not been involved in those discussions. We're still, in essence, very traditional. And I think about the King Ranch when we talk about the King Ranch and what it does. They are plowing fields with unmanned tractors, and they're doing for a kid that wants to stay in that world, in that space through, it's available, but we're not getting the word out, and we're not aligning our programs to be able to fulfill the workforce demands of a very sophisticated King Ranch operation, right? Yeah. When it comes to cattle and turf and everything that they do around the industry. So you just simply need to turn to your backyard and just figure out those kinds of issues. Yeah. And guess what? They're applicable to real world kind of things, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And when you think about artificial intelligence and how quickly that is changing,
yes,
everything that we do, and people say, well, they're going to take people's jobs, and I say no. I think it was the head of NVIDIA that said, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who understands AI is going to take your job. I love that statement. It's so true, right?
It is. It's such a great statement, because I don't think you can. Well, maybe down the road, how do you replicate someone's heart that's all in for a mission, whether that's a corporation or an industry?
Right.
I mean that's gonna. I know there's a pursuit of that,
Right.
but we're complex beings. I don't know. I don't
Right.
know. I don't think they have the answer quite yet. They can have
Nope.
the intellectual piece,
Right.
but that motivational piece and that spirit of trying to fulfill your mission. I mean that's going to be a hard thing to replicate. So I 100% agree with that statement.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that means we not only have to think about people who haven't been in higher ed, but those who have and are working and need to be upskilled and reskilled. It's an entire new opportunity, working with employers, right, to help get folks to the point where they can use technology. And like you said, keeping that human heart, that peace, that's that
Yes.
oversight that is like,
Yes.
yeah, that might be more efficient, but guess what? It doesn't really work. It goes back to the student centric. It's still got to work for the student. You might have created the most streamlined processes, but guess what? It doesn't work for the student.
It
You need
doesn't
that
work.
human person, right?
Exactly. And I've had a lot of colleagues reach out to me back to the Mackenzie Scott Award, because for me, it just feels like we were validated, for being the first gift for A&M Kingsville. But I think, when you are all in for a mission like we are in South Texas, it gets noticed. I mean, people now, so they ask me, well, how do you get the money? I mean, there is no application. There is no way. I mean, we simply got on her radar and were affirmed by her gift. That is gold for us because it shows that someone with an external lens that understands elevating communities, right, says they're onto something. They're doing something special in South Texas, and I want to help.
Right.
So there is no magic formula. It's being true to your mission, being true to your educator heart, and going all in for your community and your students. And I believe blessings will come as a result of that, and they have been coming for A&M Kingsville. And as I think any educator, it's more that intrinsic motivation, those intrinsic rewards to get students that cross the finish line is more valuable than anything. This gift just helps us get students there faster and more efficient, and get them through the finish line, no doubt.
Yeah. So staying on Mackenzie Scott's gift for a minute, you talked about doubling down on the Javelina Skills Trade Academy. And I know this is recent news to you, and you probably don't have it all worked out, but you must have a wish list there of, even from a big picture concept perspective, of thoughts about how you might spend that money. And anything you're willing to share with us, I understand it may not actually happen, but that you hope to do.
So here's the beauty of this answer, right? Is that most of it is already aligned with our strategic plan.
Nice.
It's already aligned with our capital improvement plan. It's just gone from a 10-year plan to maybe a 2-year plan now, right? With these resources, right?
Yeah.
So number one for us is to create a true workforce innovation campus, a true campus for workforce. That's priority one. Second is also to ensure that we have the simulation labs and everything we need, because we just were approved and affirmed for a rural nursing program.
Oh, great.
And we're partnering with the A&M College of Medicine to really expand not just nursing, but a rural MDs and physician assistants right here in Kingsville, Texas. I think it's also, we're going to ensure that Javelina Promise and Javelina Relight continue to remain healthy, and there's enough scholarships in there for everyone, because as you know, as you grow, as more students start to onboard, those scholarships, that bucket starts to dry up. So we need to be sure there's plenty in there to be sure that every student in our backyard can access those monies and those scholarships. So there are some major pillars that are already aligned to what we're doing, that we're just affirming and ensuring that they're not going anywhere. But this is exciting because it's no longer a 10-year plan. I mean, these things are going to come quicker than later. And I think what's going to do is provide tremendous hope and opportunity for our community to say, I don't have to go to this Metroplex. I can do this right in my backyard and still enjoy the beautiful aspects of South Texas living. I just think that's a game changer for us, and I think it's going to provide just high levels of hope for our community to say, not just the resources, but to be validated in such a way that tells me that what we're doing is true, authentic. It's our hearts are leading our mission, and boy, does that create tremendous integrity and affirmation for our community to say, well, these are true educators. They've got our best interest in mind, and that just ensures that our community believes in us and they trust us to move this forward.
Yeah, because I can imagine in the community, people are saying, well, you all got $38 million. Like, how does that help me? And so the messaging that you just described is really important in saying it's here to help all of you. So anyone who wants to, it's here for you. Like, we're here to help you. I love this concept of relight. I'll give you credit, but I am going to use it over and over again. I love it.
Please use it. No, please use it, because for us, there was a light, right? And it may have dimmed. Sometimes it completely goes away and you don't know it's there. That relight is, we're going to relight that fire, that light in you to get you right back. And it's been resonating. People, those folks that graduate through Relight, through extra scholarships and monies that we provide, I'm telling, there's at least 6 to 8 family members with them when they're there, and I keep watching the eyes of those 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and they're tearing up because their mom or dad are tearing up, and I can't wait for them to explain these are not tears of sacrifice or pain. These are tears of joy. That's a whole different way of experiencing that emotion. And I think those kids are going to be well prepared moving forward, no doubt.
Yeah. So I know it's hard to believe we're almost coming up on an hour, Robert. It has flown by, but I want to give you an opportunity to make any final comments you'd like. If you wanted to say to the folks that are on this call, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 things you would like them to walk away knowing about your institution? What would they be?
I think for me is I have to. And sometimes it comes across as harsh when I say it, but be happy. It's important to find joy and happiness in your life. And if fulfilling this mission that you're on at your institution does not bring you joy and happiness, go do something that does bring you joy and happiness. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It just means that life's too short. I thought life was going to slow down, Debra, coming to rural South Texas from San Antonio. And it's actually gotten faster because there's so much more work, so much more need that needs to happen in a lot of these forgotten cities and communities in South Texas. But every day I get up with joy in my heart. Every day I sleep good at night knowing that I empty the tank every single day for our mission and our students. And I lead by example because I'm willing to roll up my sleeves. So I think all of us as higher ed educators need to really check, am I truly happy and fulfilled with what I'm doing? I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying it's difficult. We have a very difficult mission, but it brings joy to my heart when we can actually advance the mission and move our agenda, our strategic plan forward. And that brings fulfillment. And when you have fulfillment in what you do as a professional, that translates to your personal life, to your relationships with your families or extended families, because you're happy and you're proud of the work that you're doing. You can have that, and you can get around teams that are doing that work. I know people say, "Well, where is it?" Read, research, look at what people are doing, stay connected with Trellis, right? These are organizations and universities and colleges that are doing something special for their backyard. You can participate and be part of a mission-minded team, and they're out there and they're doing great work. And if that brings joy to your heart and you feel fulfillment, then I think that is the quality of life component that a lot of folks are overlooking because they're looking for something somewhere, and it's sometimes right there in your own backyard.
Yeah, I think when work doesn't feel like work, it feels like doing what is your passion, then you've
Right.
hit it, right, Robert?
That's right.
Um, I think that Texas A&M University-Kingsville is incredibly blessed to have you as a leader.
Thank you, Deb.
I value greatly our partnership and look forward to what might be possible in the future for us working together. But also, I'm going to be watching closely to see how all these things unfold over the next couple of years, and specifically looking at impact in South Texas. So
Thank you so much, Deborah. That means the world to me, and believe me, we're going to do something special, and we're going to continue to push our plan forward, and we're going to revive a lot of these communities that don't have a lot of hope, sometimes when they look around, and but I remember as a kid, because I grew up in South Texas, these communities at some point were thriving.
yeah.
Those post offices were thriving, and it's gone. But we have examples of those same communities being uplifted, and we need to do that for every one of our communities that we serve in our backyard. So, yeah, the mission is hard, but we gladly do it because that's what we signed up for.
And that's what makes it all worthwhile.
That's right.
Robert, I know you're incredibly busy, especially, this time of year. I just want to say thank you for making time, spending this hour with us. Incredible conversation. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. And thank you for everything that you do. And you guys are tremendous partners. And we're blessed to have you as part of the partnership and part of the journey.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We'll be back with another one next after the first of the year. I don't know if we're going to be able to do better than this one, though, but we'll set the goal high. Thank you, Robert, very much. And best wishes. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you, Deborah, as well. And the entire group. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.